Hey there, I'm Billum, and this is the Retrospective, a look at games from the past in modern light. I talk about games from yesteryear and weigh them out to see if they're still worth playing today. My journey this week has me taking a look at a series I haven't been involved with for some time: Pokemon. When the Pokemon craze hit, I was Nintendo's target audience. An 8-year-old boy who loved exploring in the woods and collecting insects. It's like the franchise was made for me. While I didn't have the channel to watch the anime, borrowing VHSs from friends, buying trading cards, and consuming anything else from the world of Pokemon was enough to get me more than ready for my first jump into the games. Unfortunately, I couldn't get into the game series with the original launch in the US in 1998. It wasn't until a couple of years later that happened. I got my first taste of the Pokemon games when my mom bought me an Atomic Purple Game Boy Color and Pokemon Yellow for my birthday in 2000. While that delay would bother some, for me it worked out perfectly. See, I just hit 10 years old, and as everybody knows, that's when you start your Pokemon adventure in the anime and games. So the fact that I turned 10 and got Pokemon Yellow was just absolutely perfect to me. While Pokemon Yellow largely follows the same story as Pokemon Red and Blue that came out a year before it, there are some changes that are worth noting. First off is that Pokemon Yellow doesn't actually let the player choose their starting Pokemon. Instead, players end up with Pikachu as their starter. That's due to the game taking some extra cues from the anime. While that may seem like a bummer, it means that players will end up with all 3 starters from the Kanto region before the game is done. It's also worth noting that there are other changes that bring in extra influence from the anime. That includes Jesse and James serving as boss battles in place of Team Rocket Grunts at certain points during the story. Another thing I should point out is that Pokemon Yellow has some updated sprite art when compared to Pokemon Red and Blue. That might not seem like anything major, but anyone that's played those 2 games will know that sprite art could be a bit lacking at times. Unfortunately, my poor boy Venusaur didn't get as much love as he deserved. He still looks like a head of lettuce from behind no matter what Generation 1 game he shows up in. At this point, you likely know how a Pokemon game works. You set out on a journey, you defeat the gym leaders, you take down an evil organization, and you beat the Elite Four, all before stomping your hometown rival in one last battle. I don't really think I need to go into the exact details here. It's a formula that has remained, for the most part, even in modern Pokemon games. So instead, let's talk about my Pokemon journey, and the choices I made along the way. First off, I'm a fan of always nicknaming my Pokemon. I know it sounds silly, but it adds that extra level of care for me. I've also got to say that I might play Pokemon games completely different than most people. To me, Pokemon is all about assembling a team of my favorite Pokemon. I couldn't care less if that means I'm missing out on certain types. There's always ways to get around that. So what does this mean for my journey? I'll tell you this. Pikachu isn't a Pokemon I would put on my dream team. That means I stashed him away in a box as soon as I ran out of room for him. And I didn't even worry about a lack of electric attacks. Why? Because I brought a Rhydon with me. And if you don't know this already, Rhydon can learn a stupid large variety of moves, including the ones I taught him, which were Thunderbolt, Stomp, Strength, and Surf. Yeah, forget all about that surfing Pikachu, or actually grabbing a water type to cross the ocean with. Just get yourself a Rhydon and set out to sea. My unconventional choices for a Pokemon team would likely leave some people cringing. At the end of the game, I had a Venusaur named Ranfortis, a Kingler named Mortation, a Sandslash named Termis, Ripper the Rhydon, Quint the Nidoking, and Morsignis the Magmar. A quick note here, I hacked that Magmar in since he can't be caught in the game regularly. Magmar is actually my favorite Pokemon, and I definitely wanted him in my team for this playthrough. As you can see, I was completely lacking in the type advantage department with some of my choices. Even so, I was able to storm through the game easily enough and even take down the Elite Four and my rival with a team of Pokemon that was nearly 10 levels below my opponents. And no, I didn't just guillotine everything to death with my Kingler. But I did definitely use him to take out some of Lance's more annoying Pokemon. Instead, I just played to my team's strengths and made do with what I had to get through Pokemon Yellow. Sure, it might not have been the cleanest victory, but I've never been a min-max player, and actually find it to be an annoying way to approach a game. See, to me, a Pokemon game is all about the fun you have on the journey. I just can't get that from leaving out my favorite Pokemon and sticking with others just because it makes more sense tactically. It's just not how I approach these games. Also, I in no way, shape, or form went out of my way to catch as many Pokemon as possible. I rarely completion a game, and Pokemon is really not one I'd ever even want to. Even so, I did make sure to do some of the extra challenges. That includes catching each of the legendary birds, as well as Mewtwo in the cave behind Cerulean City. In the case of the birds, I used Ultra Balls and more resets than I care to count, but it got the job done. When I went for Mewtwo, I just threw a Master Ball at him and called it good. I was more than ready to call it quits by then, and didn't feel like beating him down over and over again until I got him with an Ultra Ball. I've also got to take a quick moment to speak about grinding in Pokemon Yellow, and turn-based RPGs in general. In most cases, I'm not a fan of using fast-forward functions to grind out levels in an RPG. However, I make a special exception for Pokemon. The older games don't have as much in the way of assistance when it comes to helping with that grind, and it can be tedious. I think even Nintendo knew this. When Pokemon Stadium for the N64 came out, it featured a transfer pack that players could make use of. This pack let them connect their Gen 1 Pokemon games. Doing so let them make use of their team in battles, but there's a more important feature than that. Players can also progress in Pokemon Stadium to unlock the Doduo and Dodrio Game Boy Towers. These allow the players to play their Game Boy Color Pokemon games at double or triple speed. You can bet I made use of this feature as a kid to get my Pikachu up to level 100. So when it comes to playing Pokemon nowadays, I see no problem with using an emulator and increasing the gameplay speed when grinding. After all, even Nintendo let players move through the games 3 times faster back when they first came out. The final thing I want to talk about is my rival in Pokemon Yellow. You may have noticed that I named him Nexus, and that's not some random choice. Back in high school, a friend and I picked up Pokemon Red and Blue, as well as matching Game Boy Advance SPs to play them. We named the rivals in each of our games after each other, and also kept a link cable on hand to battle against each other. I remember always getting beat during homeroom and lunch by my buddy's Pokemon, and it's something I fondly remember. Now it's kind of become a tradition for me to name the rival after my friend in any Pokemon game. That's not really super important to this retrospective or anything, it's just something sentimental I wanted to share. At this point, I think I've bled the Pokemon Yellow well dry. There's not much else for me to talk about. With that in mind, you might be wondering about my recommendation for the game. Honestly, it's not something I can get behind playing anymore, at least not on the original hardware. There's just such a slog to grinding in the game that I can't stand it. To be clear, this isn't me saying I dislike the game or anything like that. Instead, I just think it's best played with an emulator so players can speed up the slower parts and keep the action going. It's either that or hooking up an N64 or Pokemon Stadium and a transfer pack to play the game the way Nintendo meant for it to be experienced. But that's a lot more work than I care for, so I'll just stick with my emulated copy. Do you have any special memories with Generation 1 Pokemon games that you'd like to share? I'd love to hear about them in the comments below. Maybe consider giving this video a like and subscribing while you're at it. You can also hit me up on Twitter at BillM256 if that's more your thing. And as always, thank you for watching, and take it easy.